Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. In today's video we're going to go over the relic tier list. So I have not done one of these in a while, I don't think so. So I'm going to try to make it as fast as possible and as clear as possible, and we're going to go by the ordering of my relics. So first of all we have the chest. The chest is going to be easy, S tier for the PvP. So this relic in the PvP is one of the best relics in the game on the attacker side. On the defender side it won't likely matter unless enemy is not using a 9-star relic chest and you are, so in that case it will matter. But other than that, if you're attacker, you will definitely benefit from this relic, especially going against Avengers that run Magatama, and running Magatama means you have to proc it for it to activate this effect right here, the last words effect. So proccing Magatama is crucial, and if you deny them from the proc and kill them faster, they will not trigger the Magatama death bomb. So and apart from that, it's also very available for cheesy setups that will disturb the enemy relic regeneration and therefore grant you some additional leeway in terms of PvP cheese. So it's one of the best relics for sure. Whether it's worth investing into with money, it's definitely not. It has many sources to be picked from, so definitely not worth investing money, but rather have some patience and save your money by playing a longer game. The next relic is going to be the Python's Mirror. Python's Mirror is really strong, but it has a really terrible skill, which is this one right here. Buffing Elmer and Sandra is very useful. And the only part of this relic is this right here, the Eco Rebirth. So when 2 units in the battlefield die, it grants 1 revival chance to 4 random surviving allies, which triggers 1 time per battle. So effectively it will revive 4 of your allies, which can be crucial for some battles. So for the PvP, I think I'm going to give it also S tier, but at the end I will revisit this. So it's definitely effective, definitely good, but it does require 5 stars, or I believe so at least. And it does also get better at the 3 stars, so it's definitely one of the better relics to go for if you don't have anything else, and it's really cheap because it's in the most majority of the outdated chest. For the Umbra storage, this relic is terrible in the seasonal PvP because the fortitude is really useless, because it can be bypassed by the execute from either Valiantors or from the execute from the pets. Therefore fortitude is very useless, and this relic is only good for the increase of 8 max HP, so increasing 150 max HP is really nice. But apart from that, it's really terrible for its effect because of the said reason. So the only place where you can actually cheese this relic is something like the duels, in which the Phoenix doesn't exist, and you can also cheese it in something like Arena and Yggdrasil and any mode that doesn't have execute, pretty much viable on all of the teams. So I would give it like A tier for the PvP, so I think it would fall into this tier, and I don't think it's all that amazing, so it will probably be ranked somewhere in the end of the tier list. Then we have the Vanquisher. Vanquisher is really amazing. It has 100% chance to debuff, transfer the debuffs to random enemy. It can also definitely cleanse Lucifer, although it's a bit RNG because it will prioritize the strong control effects such as stun and freeze, so it can transfer the freeze to the enemy team. It's really good relic, but it requires a high stars to be effective, and it's purely for the PvP. So I think I'm going to give it A tier because it's very high cost and it's very niche. Oftentimes you won't need it, but oftentimes it's very good for something like Mystifiers, which have no way to deal with CC, therefore it's kind of a necessary pick for them. So I'm going to give it A tier because it's too niche, and it's pretty much same as the Umbra Storage is also a niche, so I'm going to call it niche tier for now. And I will stop there. So the next up is going to be the Underworld Key. Underworld Key was one of those key relics for the Mystifiers and Valiantors, one of the only relics to have 100 energy gain upon its cast, but unfortunately it's not that good, and especially don't pair the Lucifer. It's definitely bug. If you pair this relic with the Lucifer on your team, it will not stun the enemies. I'm not sure what's the deal with that, but it's happening, so don't pair it with Lucifer. And the effect of stunning enemies is strong, but this effect right here, another flame to strike, dealing 2% damage of their max HP, is absolutely ridiculous nowadays. It's close to 0 damage at all, so definitely outdated relic. Unfortunately still good because it's one of those unique relics that has energy and stun on the instant cast, so pretty good, but nowhere near the S tier as it was before, but it's definitely better than the Umbra Storage. And I think I will leave I'm not sure, I think Python's Mirror is quite underrated, so I will leave it there. The next relic is going to be the Cosmic Gourd. Cosmic Gourd is 2 niche tier and is primarily used with Wukong or Ethereals to swap them, basically to double their buff increase. And it does require 6 to 8 stars to be completely usable. The decrease in accuracy is not that good, unfortunately. You can't really feel its effect, but the doubling the buffs after the swap is really good with heroes like Venus, so it's definitely a niche tier relic. It's not all that terrible. Is it worth investing? Not really. It's just something for those niche tier players that really want to experiment and really want to have their fun with Wukong. Next relic is Judgment Blade. So this relic was one of the better relics. Nowadays it's mostly used in the Abyss Crusades for the damage. I believe I had some relics already being planned to work on. So yeah, I did have this. Not sure if I even made a video on this at the end or not, but overall I did have something like this. So Judgment Blades were in this tier, so it's only pretty much usable for the challenge from the Beyond, and they're not really all that useful in other modes. In PvP they're good, but their execution part is really horrible because we do have Phoenix nowadays, as I have mentioned before. The attack increase is really nice and the relic damage increase is really nice. So I think I'm going to put it in like A tier overall. So I think this tier will be A tier, but overall, so both PvP and PvE wise, they're not really terrible relics, but they're not some relics to be really strong and useful at. I'm going to add a new row about this. So this will be S tier overall. So overall S tier for the heroes, and yeah, S tier overall. So this will be tier for the relics that are overall the best, and we will be adding them soon there. The next relic is Demon Bane Whip, and unfortunately yet another relic that has been very outdated. The Sanctuary effect is no longer as useful as it was. The HP increase is only 100%, and the cooldown of this relic is also 5 rounds, so it's really not all that amazing relic, and I'm going to put it in B tier, which is also going to be an overall tier, I reckon. So B tier overall, we're going to put it in there. Just let me find it. So I don't think it's all that good, and we can also compare where I put it in here. So this was my tier list. I don't even know when I made it, unfortunately. It's been too long. It's just a project I have started and kind of... So I put it in the PvP niche, and yeah, I guess it's only PvP nowadays. You can't really make use of it for the PvE anymore. Although it was at once used in the Lost City, but yeah, no longer really used there. The next relic is Stardust, one of the worst relics in the game, so I'm definitely going to put it in the C tier. It's only usable because you can use it as a synergy filler for the Avengers, but the effect of this relic is honestly one of the worst effects in the game. Only 80% max HP increase is really shameful. So yeah, one of the worst relics in the game. You can only use it if you need the synergy passive, basically active. So yeah, that's the only usage for these kind of relics in this tier. So if you want Avengers to keep their buffs for 1 round, you have to run the 3 Avenger relics, which is really crucial for the Magatama damage. But then again, if you run the Stardust Sphere, you will likely not run Magatama in them. So yeah, overall, one of the worst relics in the game, definitely not worth focusing on. The next one is going to be the Tempest Hammer. Requires 5 stars to be usable in my opinion, and is still good both on Ethereals and Dooms. It's a really good relic. It stuns all enemies. Or not all, but a lot of enemies, attacks 3 enemies, so it stuns, pretty much has guaranteed chance to stun all enemies by 1 round, and it gets extended by additional round. So it's definitely a 2-round stun on 3 enemies, a really good relic, and it's not S tier relic for the PvP, but it's definitely an A tier relic for the PvP. Let me find it. And it's going to be somewhere around the Vanquisher, so I don't think gourd is going to be that high, because gourd is too specific, whereas these relics are pretty optional and really not that hard to use as gourd is. The next relic is going to be Swollen Shields, also an A-tier relic, still good, even though it's been quite a while ever since it was released. It's still a very good relic nonetheless, especially with Lamia, although you will probably very likely just use it with Lamia or with Babylon in the first position, because you want to give them shield and increase their max HP. So yeah, overall a real good relic if you have frontline heroes that want HP increased and shield, so something like Babylon or Lamia, definitely worth running for them. but other than that you will likely not run it outside of that, mostly in the dooms from my experience. Very rarely run in the Glorians. Next up is going to be Night Surge. So Night Surge is one of those very strong relics in the early game and the very strong relics in the late game. Only 3 rounds cooldown, and it increases attack by 50%, or actually 30%, and it increases the leech rate, which is very, very crucial. So overall, this relic and also the overheal received from all allies is increased by 150. So the excess healing received beyond the max HP when healed, so you can also overheal heroes, and this relic is also useful in PvP and mainly in the PvE, and I reckon it requires S tier, although it's definitely not worth investing into because it's definitely one of the oldest relics in the game, so you will not want to over invest into it, but you want to keep it working on it from those lowest tier chests, and it's one of those relics that will want to be pushed up to 9 stars for sure. Next relic is going to be Famine scale. So this relic is very outdated, but it has 3 rounds cooldown. It's obviously usable both in the dooms and in ethereals, especially with heroes that can enchant enemies. So as you can see, the link skill is when the active or passive skills of an ally have applies confuse, which is basically same as enchant, to more than 1 target during this round. The ally's max HP is increased by 100% for 2 rounds, and it can't be stacked unfortunately, but it's still one of the usable relics. So I'm going to put it in like the A tier overall, I think, although I think it's a kind of like a B tier relic for the PvP. So I'm going to make another row in here, which is going to be other one row above, and it's going to be B tier for the PvP. This relic is going to be the Death Scythe. Although this relic has not been usable in a very long time, nobody has been really using it. Although its effect Mauling Reaper, which increases the damage boost by 15%, is nice, it has been overshadowed by majority of the other newer relics, so it's also a relic that doesn't increase the 100 energy upon its cast, so it's not really a usable relic in a while. It doesn't make it a bad relic, it's definitely usable, but there's just more better relics nowadays than it. So I'm not going to put it in the worst tier, but I think I will put it in the B tier overall, and I also have to swap these around, so this is A tier overall, which should be above this. Actually, I will keep it above like this. So I'm going to put it in the B tier overall, which is not necessarily a bad tier, but it's definitely a tier you don't want to continuously invest your invoker summons into. So definitely avoid them, but don't be afraid to use them if you get them for free, basically is what this tier is. Then we have the Plague Bow. It's a slightly better tier than the Death Scythe, so I'm going to put it in the A tier overall. It's also usable in the PV because of its holy shields. It applies a lot of holy shields, even though this passive right here is quite useless, but irrelevant of that, applying 5 stacks of holy shields on the 2 allies is basically 10 stacks of holy shields, and recasting this relic is really easy. So it's actually 20 stacks of holy shields on 2 allies, which can be very useful. So it also does quite nice damage to the enemies. So overall, it's not necessarily a bad relic, but it's just been overshadowed by the new relics, which is often the case with heroes as well. So not necessarily bad relic, but it's definitely usable, and you will also kind of want to always use it with the Mystifers or the Valianters, but I would stick to using it with Mystifers. The next relic is going to be the Leviathan. It's a pretty solid relic, mostly in the PvP. So I would give it a B tier for the PvP. It's really nice, and it has a high chance to silence the enemies, but it does require a high level tier. So I think it was at 7 stars that it was really good, but at 9 stars it becomes instant cast. So if it's below 9 stars, enemies will likely already use their abilities, so you're kind of losing on the value of these relics. And the additional increasing 40% reflect rate for the allies is really nice. So overall, pretty solid relic, but there's definitely new better options for the dooms, such as these ones. And I would say it's in the pretty much similar situation as the boat, so it's definitely not usable in PvE, unlike the boat though. So even though you will never see boat in PvE, it's definitely usable. But yeah, other than that, Leviathan is quite usable in the dooms. You will likely not use it in the ethereals, but in Dooms you will, because they do need the synergy passive to be really effective. Next relic is going to be the Hand of Tyr. Hand of Tyr has a 3-round cooldown and it has massive shields to your team. So Hand of Tyr has really massive shields given to your allies, especially if you can stun enemies, which is quite easy nowadays to increase your max HP. So I would give it to A tier for overall relic. It's definitely usable in PvE as well as in PvP, although you will not likely use it in PvE as much as it was in the past used, but it doesn't mean it's not good there. So it's definitely an A tier overall relic, and you will definitely use it in PvP, especially for the Avengers and with Hela if you have her, or with Hera because she also can stun, which will increase your team's max HP, which will help you win on the timeout. So definitely one of those relics you want to keep your eyes on. Not worth investing into because it's very old and very easy to get from the other sources, but you will definitely want to build it from your cheap sources that you gain from like Rift Odyssey or any other kind of chest that have basically this relic. The other relic is going to be the Crimson Crown. So this relic I don't think is that good. It's been kind of outdated and it was never really good to begin with. Increasing the relic damage is definitely good when it comes to this mode right here, as it was for this relic, but it's not really usable because of the MO and because of the Underworld key. So yeah, overall this relic doesn't really offer much anymore in the PvP, so I think I'm going to be giving it into the... Although it does increase the team's attack increase by 50%, so it's definitely good for the PvE there. I don't think it's C tier, it's not as bad as Stardust, so I think I'm going to give it the B tier for the overall, same as the scythe, although they're pretty much really the same tier, so it's going to be the B tier, and it's definitely one of those high tier investment relics to be even worthy considering, so definitely not worth spending on and definitely not worth focusing on. The next relic is going to be the Flame Banner. The Flame Banner is an easy S tier overall relic. It's good in PvP, it's good in PvE. In fact, it's one of the better relics in the PvE for the survival. It's the only relic that gives you insane amounts of holy shields per round. So at least 10 holy shields on the first cast, and you can cast it like twice in the first round. So it's definitely one of those relics that will give you sustain without any issues. The other effects it gives are not that good, although they're usable. Increasing the relic damage of all allies is pretty mid, but the 100 energy restore is really nice. And then it also has ignoring 100% defense when attacking a target is definitely nice, although defense is one of those traits that are kind of irrelevant in the game. So the only really big important part for this relic is its Avengers, and it gives you 10 stacks of holy shield. So still one of the best relics in the game. It's been the best relics in the game, and it's definitely worth investing both money and your invoker summons for it. So if you need to get it, its ideal spot is like 5 stars when it becomes 8 holy shields per round. So 7 stars is not really that big of a deal, going from 8 to 10. But another big deal is going to 9 stars, which is going to be an instant cast, so giving your team instant 10 holy shields per round. The relic after that is going to be the Soulbinding Lance. It's still one of those good relics, and I would say even S tier overall relics, because it's still providing you double actions. So this effect right here, Feeble, which targets have 100% chance to take the double damage. What it actually does, it makes your allies use their active skills twice. Even some heroes like Pandora will cast their ultimates twice instead of just enemy taking double damage, which is definitely one of those good bad translations. So it's definitely one of those key things that keeps this relic being in top tier for both PvP and PvE. Its next effect, which is instantly restoring 100 energy and increasing the relic damage of all allies, is pretty much the same as the banner. And then we have the Feeble, which reduces the enemy's damage by 80%, which I don't think is actually accurate. So I'm not sure if this is completely working or not, but you can definitely see the Feeble effect on the enemies, and it's definitely cleansable as well, from what I have seen by some relics, like Scepter I believe was fully cleansing this, and there were heroes that were cleansing this, but I am not sure which ones anymore. But it's definitely cleansable effect, and I'm not sure if it's working, but nonetheless this relic, because of the double action, is still one of those best relics for both PvP and PvE. The next relic is going to be the Cosmic Mirror, also an S tier overall relic. It's definitely a high investment, but it's usable at 2 stars only. but starting at 6 stars and 8 stars, it becomes one of the better relics in the game. It makes all of your demons ult basically at the start of the battle, and it continues happening for the every following round, so all of your allies will keep accumulating the 3 undercurrents and then consuming the undercurrents to make all demons ult, which is extremely usable in the Rift Odyssey for Babylon or even the PvP with your Mystifiers, because majority of the Mystifiers are actually demon heroes, so them ulting at the start of the battle is really insane, and this relic for sure deserves S tier overall and is slightly better than the lance nowadays, so it's definitely a relic you want to invest into and definitely get it up. As I said, it's definitely usable at 2 stars, but then goes even better at 6 and 8 stars, and its ideal spot is at 9 stars. Pharaoh's sarcophagus is also one of those best tiers, is also one of those S tier overall relics. Although I will make a note on it, I don't think it's worth going up above 5 stars, so only up to 4 stars, because at 5 stars it gets this passive which will basically use those freezing points to generate shield on your allies, which will actually decrease your damage. It's good for the PvP, it's definitely worth going above 4 stars if you're going for the PvP, up to 9 stars, but if you're only a PvE player, that is a free-to-play player, I would suggest keeping it at 4 stars just to be sure that you're not getting a negative value for investing into Relic. It's definitely an issue on their end, and it definitely should be coded differently and fixed. So this shouldn't be a thing that you get punished for making a relic a higher stars, but it's the current situation, and my suggestion is keeping it at only 4 stars. And as I said, only if you're going for the PvP, it's worth going to the 9 stars. But if you're a free-to-play player, just keep it at 4 stars just to be safe. And yeah, the reason why this relic is strong is because the damage it gives from the freezing points, all of the crit damage and the ultimate damage is really strong effect. It's definitely one of the better buffers in the game. The next relic is going to be the Ocean's Mouth. So this relic is now slightly better in the PvP because majority of the heroes actually can proc this nowadays. So this effect right here at the start of each round applies moonlight to all enemies for 1 round. Moonlight when enemies take more than 10 hits. This was quite hard to proc in the past when it was released and up until recently, but nowadays you have so many heroes with so many actions that this is no longer really an issue, especially for someone like our Ekind or Bella or Babylon, which is both Doom's and Ethereal's faction. So nowadays you actually have ways to proc this, and this relic is one of those relics that is key parts in the challenge from the Beyond bosses, so it's definitely one of those relics you want to have, and I think it's a tier overall type of relic, so I'm going to put it right here. And I wouldn't really argue against it being S tier overall, but I'm not sold on its PvP effectiveness, so I'm going to just keep it at the A tier overall effect. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this relic. It's quite simple really. You just use the heroes that have multi-actions to proc the moonlight and then basically stun enemies and deal some damage to them, and that's really it. So quite simple relic and really easy to use. The next relic is going to be the Zephyr Spear. This relic has been really outdated. It's only usable in the Foggy Colosseum that has basically increased shields, so this relic will give your team nice shields, and in the Foggy Colosseum for the shield increase battles it will be really nice, and it's mostly used as an Avenger bot relic for me, but you don't really have to use it anymore, you don't have to invest into it. It was the first relic with 100 energy restoration, so it's one of those OG relics that basically shaped the future, and unfortunately it has been outdated, so it's not a relic you want to invest into, but I'm going to give it A tier overall because it's not really a terrible relic, but it's not really a mandatory relic anymore. As I said, primarily used for the Avengers. The relic after the Zephyr Spear is going to be the Magatama, and Magatama has slightly lost its value for the PvE, although for the PvP it still remains one of the key relics for the Avengers. It does stack with Hera, so the death effects from this one, the Last World's effect, also does work with the Hera's. With Hera's Magatama on that bomb, so the only effect that kind of lost its value is the effect right here, and I'm not entirely sure why, but I believe it's still usable in the most PV effects such as Lost City. I do still occasionally run it there. It's obviously a mandatory effect for the Palace of Penrose and probably still usable in the Celestial Chalice. The only effect I think it lost its value in is the Rift Odyssey, and I think it's because mainly the damage has went up to the amount of actions instead of the amount of ticks like it used to be in the past. So therefore Magatama for the PvE has slightly lost its value, but it's still an S tier for the PvP relic, that's for sure, and I would argue it's still worthy to be considered in the S tier overall. So if not for the overall, I would definitely keep it in the PvP, but I'm still fully convinced it's still good in the PvE, so therefore I will also keep it in the S tier overall. So yeah, its minimal investment is going to be the 3 stars for the burn effect, but if you want it usable in PvP, it's definitely going to be 6 and 8 stars. So yeah, and you will always run it with your Avenger Phantoms, there's no other answer other than that, so always Avenger Phantoms for this relic. Occasionally you can run it with Dooms, but I do not suggest that. The next relic is going to be Kusanagi. Now, unlike the Magatama, Kusanagi is still one of the stronger relics, and it's definitely best in everything, and I'm going to put it after the Telescope in my opinion. I think Telescope is slightly better, although Kusanagi is better in the Lost City, that's for sure. But I reckon Telescope has slight more value because of the PvP plus Rift Odyssey, whereas the Kusanagi is not all that amazing in PvP, unless you're trying to beat some Monarch beefy teams in which you need a lot of burst damage to burn through their max HP limits. So in that case Kusanagi is better, but other than that I do still believe that the scope is slightly better. Kusanagi to be usable requires only 2 stars, and it really peaks at that, and then it gets better at 6 and 8 stars. Ideally you want it at 9 stars, but that's just purely for the late game. It's available in the shops right now, so you can grab it from there. If not, just work it through the normal chest. As I said, getting it to 2 stars will basically suffice you for a very long time. Get it to 3 stars only if you want the additional effect, which is this one. So basically just inflicting additional 500% damage for the freezing points, and if you want to pair it with Kusanagi for the additional freezing points. So yeah, that's the only reason you want it to 3 stars, purely for the PvP mainly. You will run this relic irrelevant of the factions. You will run it where you need it, where you need the burst damage. So best use for this relic is usually with Pandora in Lost City especially, and Babylon, and any other kind of high damage ultimate spammer. Next one is going to be the Planar Gate. Now ideally Planar Gate would be easy S tier overall, but since Planar Gate, the damage immunity effect at 7 stars that you get isn't working at all, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, mostly it doesn't, at least it seems that way nowadays. So I'm unfortunately going to make a special tier on its own, which is going to be called an S tier when works, F tier when doesn't. So S tier if works, F tier if doesn't. That's pretty much all that is supposed to be known for this relic. So pretty much self-explanatory. I'm going to add plus here, so it's even better. And yeah, other than that, if the damage immunity is not working for the PvP, this relic for the PvP becomes just like any other relic really. It's nothing special, only additional damage or CC immunity, but even then you have other relics to replace that. And for the damage boost, it's really strong, although the tree also does buff pretty much you the same level as Planar Gate does. So but tree actually works in PvP unlike the gate, so if you're going to invest in either of them, the tree is obviously the answer. So unfortunate, but the Planar Gate immunity damage is not working. Don't get it to 7 stars, it's purely a bait. Unless it gets fixed, then it's easily going to be right here, but until it doesn't, it stays in this tier right here. Next relic is going to be the Crown of Schemes, which I seem to not have in here. For some reason I forgot to add it, which is going to be easily fixed if we're just going to click here and add our own relics, which is going to be here. And I'm not sure if I even own the Loki's crown. I don't think I do. Okay, I actually do. So open, and then we're going to go back to the tier list, and then we're going to read the Loki's crown. So Loki's crown is really strong relic, it's really nice, but you only really can pair it with the CC units on your team. If you don't have CC units on your team, this crown itself isn't really all that amazing. Although this effect right here is pretty RNG, so it does require you to be quite lucky for it to matter. And the deception is really useless, but the transforming the buffs into debuffs can have some really strong effects, especially going up against Hera or Hela. So in that case, it's really good if you hit the RNG, good buff turned into a debuff like her seal. So yeah, for the Loki's crown, it's not one of the worst relics, but it's not the best relic either. So I think I would give it like A tier overall, or A tier in the PvP is a better fit for it. Because overall I don't think you would be using the Crown of Schemes in the PvE as much as you would in the PvP. So I will just remake it in the A tier, and yeah, I think that's a fitting tier for the Loki's crown. The next relic is going to be the Crown of Purity. This relic is an easy S tier for the PvP side of the battle. It's not usable in PvE, it does nothing for the PvE really at all. But applying the seal and increasing your heals and shields in the PvP is absolutely crucial. And then on top of that, it's only 3 rounds cooldown relic, so it's actually really good to pair with the chest as well, because chest triggers multiple times. So yeah, overall insane value for the PvP, both in Mystifers or Ethereals, or you can run it in Valiantors as well, or any kind of burst team. But it really does work wonders in both Ethereals and Mystifer teams. So it's definitely worth investing into. Its peak scaling is at 6 and 8 stars, but it works at just 3 stars or even 2 stars once you unlock the seal effect. So 2 stars pretty usable, and then at 6 and 8 stars it just becomes even better, increasing the odds far more. So yeah, one of the better PvP relics in the game right now. The next relic is the Divine Scepter. I'm going to put it in the PvP niche tier because before the bug fix it was one of the relics that was cleansing everything. Now it only cleanses the debuffs, as it says right here. So before this season it was cleansing even the CC, even the freeze, but now it only cleanses things like the corrode or the any kind of debuff, and even Lucifer. So it's still good relic if you're trying to counter Lucifer, to burst down the Lucifer teams, but against anything else such as CC it's no longer working as it used to be. Therefore I'm going to put it in the A tier, basically a tier below than it was the last season. If it was last season it would be easy S tier, but now it's just A tier, which is just niche tier. So basically using it with the right intention is the best way to call it. After the scepter we have the Exorcism cauldron, which is also a PvP niche tier. It's a very good relic, but only has one purpose, and that purpose is to make your team survive the round it casts. So the effect it actually does is this one right here. After casting for the next one round, this actually refers to the same round this relic is casted, not the incoming round. Damage received by the all allies will be absorbed, which means basically you can get frozen, you can get stunned, you can get any kind of damage on your team done. So it's basically a better gate because it actually works unlike the gate. It's what gate is supposed to be, but if the gate was working. So the way you use this is you can cheese it by casting like a chest into the cauldron. So basically instant cast cauldron, and your team is immune for the whole first round, immune to the freeze as well because you can take damage, which means you can't be frozen either. And then on top of that you can also make it be casted the round 2 with pairing it with something like the crown or the death side or any kind of relic that doesn't basically instantly give you 100 energy and makes you cast it round 2. So it's definitely something you can play around and make your team survive the round you want by making it cast into the round you want. And it's a really strong relic, but as I said, it only has one purpose, and that purpose is this one. You can trigger it every 3 rounds if you use yet another chrono relic like the Crown of Purity. So basically triggering this relic once again after the 3 rounds. If you survive, your team will be immune in the 4th round. So yeah, definitely a strong relic, but very limited to what it does and very limited to how to basically use it. Next relic is Call of the Origin Sea. This relic is very strong, and because of this effect it has basically a mini ape on its own effect, and it basically cancels enemy skills, and it also additionally gives you a massive amounts of shields. It's a very good relic both for the any kind of ethereals, and it's amazing relic in the dooms. I use it in the dooms non-stop pretty much. It's very, very strong. It's PvP only, it doesn't really do anything in the PvP, and I don't have it in here, so I have to add it also on top of these relics. But it's definitely usable at 3 stars, and it gets far better at 6 stars and especially at 7 stars. But in my opinion, 6 and 8 stars upgrade is the one that matters the most. So one of those A tier plus relics, it's not bad, it's not good either. It's definitely worth it to have and definitely nice to use. So let me find it. It's here. We go and submit this, and then we are safe to go ahead and use it. And I think I will use it in the A PvP tier niche. I don't think it's like S tier PvP, and it's definitely one of those stronger relics that you want to have, but it won't impact your game all that much because it does rely on RNG blocking those skills. So yeah, as I said, usable at 2 stars, but really shines at 6 and 8 stars, and you will mainly use it with the main Dooms team. Next relic is going to be Gleipnir. Gleipnir is really strong both for the PvP and PvE, so I'm going to put it in the A tier overall. I do think it's better than the Mo, and it does require 5 stars to be reliable, because at 5 stars it triggers on both the front line and back line. At 3 stars it's only front line, so you have to be careful how you manage your units, how you position them. At 5 stars you basically become immune to that, and at 6 stars it gives additional 10% attack to one ally with the highest attack. At 8 stars it becomes 2, so actually 20% to one ally, so it's not all of that amazing upgrade, but you can upgrade it to 7 stars, which also resets the cooldown of the active skills. So the way of the ordering of the skills will be ultimate in the first round, active skill in the second, and then basic attack. And the way it is now on 5 stars is basically ultimate cast into basic attack into active skill. So yeah, it's kind of like a mini Lucifer at that, but yeah, 5 stars is usable, 7 stars is like the peak of this relic, and then 9 stars for the easy energy reduction on the cast. Definitely worthy relic, and you will definitely be using it with Mystifiers. If you're not running Lucifer with them, it definitely makes it easier for them to play the battle without the Lucifer. Next relic is going to be the Thunderbolt, and I'm going to put the Thunderbolt in the B tier overall. I don't think it's all that amazing, or maybe A tier, but like somewhere in here. So yeah, I think this is more suiting. I don't think it's all that amazing PvP. It's definitely kind of outdone in PvE. So this relic was one of the best relics in the game for the Celestial Trials. It still kind of is, but does require some other things, such as the Judgment Blades or the chest to trigger it multiple times and also increase the relic damage. But other than that, it's still pretty usable, but not as peak as it was on its release. It was definitely released broken and bugged. Yeah, it's not as good as that, but it's still usable, and not one of the worst relics, because it's also one of those relics that instantly recovers your energy, so definitely usable. But I don't see if you're going to be using it with something like ethereals, and it's definitely nice, the HP restore per round. So overall pretty solid relic, but nothing that you can't live without. And yeah, if I would suggest getting it, maybe up to 3 stars and then 9 stars someday. As you can see, even me, I don't really focus on it because I don't really need it, neither for the PvP or PvE. Then we have the Crimson Chalice, one of the newest relics and one of the best relics. I'm going to give it S tier for the PvP. It's definitely second after the Crown of Purity. It's really strong, can apply silence to enemies before they do their actions. It has a nice passive link skill, but it's not really important. The most important part is it's a 3-round cooldown relic, and it also silences all enemies, which peaks at 8 stars, so definitely worth getting all the way up to 8 stars. I've been kind of slowly working on mine, and my goal is definitely getting it to 9 stars, because I want it to be casted as fast as possible and also have this amazing percentage increase at 8 stars. And also the trigger limit goes up to 3 times, which is definitely going to be huge. The most amazing part about this, it triggers before their action, so as they're about to do their action, they will be silenced, so it really can't be played around it. So yeah, definitely one of the best PvP relics. It doesn't have much usage for the PvE, although I have showcased how you can use it for the PvE with Sandra. It's nice, but it's nothing that you can play without. So overall, I'm just going to rate it for the PvP, but keep in mind you can use it in the PvE, such as Palace of Penrose mainly, and perhaps someday in the Lost City, but it's not really all that good. There are better relics for that. Next we have the Blood Rift Blade, the newest relic, and I'm not too impressed with this relic. I'm going to give it like A tier overall, right before the Thunderbolt. It's slightly better than the Thunderbolt for the PvP in my opinion, and in the PvE. Yeah, but the issue with this relic is it's not reliable because everything it doubles is pretty much RNG, and everything for the enemies as well. And the only reason why I'm giving A tier is because it has a nice solid effects that have a future, and it's also a pretty good relic for the Mystifiers, replacing the middle slot relics, which are pretty horrible. For the Dooms you can run it, but it's not all that necessary, although I've been told this relic is real nice with the Susano, so I haven't tried it. I run it with my Mystifiers mostly. But yeah, as I said, it's really not mandatory relic. You can play without it, and it's pretty much just a Thunderbolt, but slightly better. Although I would move it something like here actually, so something like this would be my positioning for this relic. The next relic is going to be the Genesis tree, and this relic is the best relic in the game by far. No other relic really comes even close to it. So I'm going to make a special tier for it called S+ tier, and this relic is going right there. There's not much to talk about it. It's really just the most broken relic in the game for the PvP, and it's really good in the PvE. The damage increase in PvE is actually felt. I have tried it at 4 stars only. It's pretty much on par with my 7-star Planar Gate. And as I said, Planar Gate would be here if it was working, but currently most of the times it's not working, so it's actually right here. So Genesis tree definitely worth going up to 7 stars, the most broken relic in the game by far. All of the effects work, everything is pretty much correctly coded. Sometimes the seal is like iffy, sometimes it works weirdly, and sometimes it doesn't seal all of their passives, so but that's really the issue with the seal itself, not the tree. And yeah, sometimes you can still lose. It's not like an auto win, but in most cases, like 90% of the times, you will just simply win with the Mystifiers and this tree, or Ethereals with this tree. Very likely just to win all of the times, and most of the times actually. So yeah, one of the best relics, if not the best relics in the game right now. I highly suggest getting it all the way. At 3 stars it's the minimal upgrade, but 7 stars is the sweet spot. So not sure what it brings at 8 stars. 8 stars is doubles the damage taken. This position 1 passive has been slightly underperforming from the test, so I do not suggest using it in position 1. Position 2 is really good, but position 3 dispels 10 debuffs, which can be also CC and can also be Lucifer's debuff, I believe. It's RNG, but the position 2 and position 3 is the position you would always want to run your Genesis tree at. Never position 1 in my experience. It only doubles the damage from 1 instance as far as you know. So yeah, it's really good effect at 8 stars as well, so definitely doubles the value, but 7 stars is the peak you needed at. So yeah, Genesis tree, highly recommended, best relic in the game. Barque is like a mid-tier relic, so I'm not sure I will put like B tier overall. It's really nice, but it's also at the same time not real nice, because allies gain 1 flaming point each time they are hit, which means you want to run it with like Avengers or the Dooms, and each flaming point increases max HP by 1%, goes up to 2%, and can only gain up to 5 rounds per round, so you can only gain 10 stacks of HP per round, up to 150% HP, which is really small amount. And the other passive of it is so basically only increasing Magatama's value, and that's really useless if you don't run Magatama with it. So this relic on its own is very limiting, very poor. Usable, but very poor, something for like a tournament 10 team kind of value relic. And yeah, other than that, not much to be said. Not worth spending resources on, and pretty much only use it if you get it to 3 stars for the Dooms, for the 100 energy it provides after its cast. And that's pretty much all about this relic there is. Dragonblood Roar X is also one of those relics I do not suggest. It's very weak in my opinion. It increases relic damage reduction, which is never really an issue, and it also on top of that gives your allies 100% max HP, and they gain additional flaming points each round, which is nice, but you are not pairing this relic with a lot of flaming points giving relics. So overall this is an even worse relic in my opinion, so I'm going to give it C tier, and its synergies are not really all that amazing, and the effects are really poor. So one of the worst relics released in a while, and I do not suggest getting it at all. Just don't get it. It's a really trash relic. Next relic is the Frost Claw. Frost Claw is really nice, but it really peaks at 8 stars when the number of targets the relic can apply freezing points to increase to all enemies. So you can kind of shrink the holy shields from all enemies. So the number of holy shield stack removed by the relic is increased to 5. It's really good, but it does require high investment, but it's still pretty good relic, both for Avengers and Dooms or any other kind of team. It's a very flexible relic, but I'm going to give it like, I'm not sure whether it's B tier or A tier at the end, something like here after the cauldron or right here. It's about the same tier as cauldron, but slightly more usable in my opinion. And lastly, we have the Divine Plume. Divine Plume is also very hard to feed the relic, very hard to notice whether it does anything or not. Ignoring the defense is one of those useless passives, and on top of that, it has this passive right here, so whenever allies cast active skill, the Divine Plume performs a follow-up attack, inheriting 25% of the active skill damage and heals the lowest HP ally. It's really hard to notice this doing anything, so I'm going to give this relic a B tier overall, slightly better than Ra's Barque. And I'm not sure whether this relic gets better at high stars. I'm not planning to investigate that because it's really poor effect for what it gives, and it's really expensive to level it up without any kind of like return investment. So I'm going to keep it in here, and now I think that's all for the relics. Oh, actually we have the Nightstalker. Nightstalker is pretty much the same story as these relics. So this is the relic I'm missing, so I should have it somewhere in here. It's crossbow. We're going to submit, and I'm actually also going to put it in this tier right here. Actually, maybe I put it in the B tier PvP, because I don't think this relic does anything in the PvE, actually like legit anything. So it's purely just a PvP relic, whereas the plume could actually do something in PvP because of the follow-up hits and deals relic damage. It's just relic damage really, so, and the vulnerability, which is nice, but not really felt, although you can see its effect in the PvP battles. Maybe it gets better at 7 stars, it's really hard to tell, and I don't really plan to get my crossbow to 9 stars or 7 stars only to test that, so I'm going to give it B tier for the PvP because I don't see it ever used in PvE. So yeah, that's the tier list for the relics. I hope I didn't miss any relic. I shouldn't really. I'm just going to skim around and see, but yeah, this seems to be all of the relics so far. And yeah, definitely 3 the best ones, followed by the banner, sarcophagus, and the telescope. These 2 are arguably can be swapped around, but yeah, they're equally strong. We have Kusanagi, Lance, Magatama, and Night Surge. Night Surge is that free-to-play player-friendly relic. Don't spend any money on it, really just get it for free. Then we have the S tiers for the PvP. These relics are right here for the PvP. A tier for the PvP, which is niche tier, and I think I will put the scepter in the A tier also, because I think it's really too niche to be good, and it's really one of those unique counters to Lucifer, so I'm going to put it there. And I'm also going to put the cauldron in the S tier. Nah, actually I'm not. I'm going to remain it in the niche tier, because it's mostly a doom filler relic, and it's, yeah, I will leave it at the PvP, A tier for the PvP, as most of these relic right here. We have done A tier overall, so I'm going to move this tier above. We have the Planar Gate tier, which is basically F tier because it mostly doesn't work. Then we have a PvP tier, and then B tier overall, so these relics right here are pretty much overall tier. We have B tier for the PvP and C tier for the synergy active, or try not to use these. And yeah, that's it for the relics. Hopefully you're satisfied with the tier list. I pretty much am. So yeah, thank you for watching, and see you guys in the next one.